Tuesday, and welcome to the Sportsline podcast here on CHCH. I'm Bubba O'Neil. Well, this exclusive podcast, it shines the spotlight on teams, athletes, coaches, and executives that come from, reside, and or are making their presence known in Southern Ontario. Now, with that said, once a week, we like to put our guests to the test with the Sportsline Square Off. No doubt many of you are familiar with this friendly face that is one of the first when you wake up and turn on that television. A dozen years ago, he co-hosted the earliest morning show in the nation on First Edition. Years later, he proved that no task was too big, too small, or too intimidating as the adventure reporter on Morning Live. Currently, he rides shotgun with the lovely Annette Hom as the co-host on Morning Live. But deep down, oh, you see it every time at about 7:10. He's a massive sports fan. And Tim Bolen, this is the second time that we have him here on the couch. And it's just great to talk to you. We had such a good time doing that square off that we had to do it again.
Well, here's the thing. There's so much to talk about, but we're just like, save it for the pod. Don't talk about it. Don't bring up anything. Let's save it for the pod because there's some good stuff to chat about. And like, is this your favorite time of the year for sports, or is it the fall?
The fall.
Because you're football? Like, yes, that's why?
That's exactly why. And you're right, because it's those two times of the year where, I mean, almost everything's going, or everything's starting to go, or the preps are starting to go. I think I like it because of that NFL, the CFL, the Grey Cup. Yeah. You're getting into the nitty-gritty in the National Football League where everything is so important. But I know you're a big baseball guy, so that's probably why it maybe means a little bit more.
There's a romance that I have with baseball that goes back to me being a kid growing up on a farm. But then you also have the NHL playoffs. Yes. You also have the NBA playoffs. Mm-hmm. You also have the MLS is back, and when the CPL is coming back, and there's just so many other things that are there going on.
It's amazing that there's that much to consume, and I know sometimes I get a little frustrated with my 6 or 7 minutes on the sportscast.
I get 3.
I know.
I get 3. No, I get 2, 3.
Which to me is like absolute travesty. I mean, because I think even when I watch you in the morning, I need a little bit more than what you're getting. So to the producers out there, can you give Tim a little bit more?
The thing is too, like, because our viewers are maybe a little bit different because people would tune in to know what's going on with sports. Our viewers might be, if they're a hardcore sports fan, they're going to one of the outlets of the Sportsnets or the TSNs to get their full breakdown of sports. That's why I always try to cater to a casual fan. Right. I don't really like to go throw hardcore stats at you. It's all about the story and just kind of educating the viewer about kind of what's going on and why you might be interested in it.
There's no doubt. You definitely tell the stories even more than I do. Yeah. I'm a little bit more results oriented and setting you up for what's coming up tonight. But you certainly do a wonderful job. And like even when there's a great play, you make that part of your morning stick as well too. And you get to conversate about it with all your teammates as well too.
Well, that's the thing, because like Annette's a sports fan, but she's not a hardcore sports fan. So like I'm also trying, like, I can gauge off of her if she's interested in it or not, and I kind of know what she's going to be interested. Yeah, well, she'll let me know. I like when I'm able to educate her. She comes back at me with stuff that we've talked about in the past. I'm like, oh goodness, that'd be. And even like who Brian Wood is and Emily, they're not sports fans either, but like there's always something interesting that caters to the non-sports fan too.
And there's so much on not only a national, there's provincial, and in our own area right now, there's never been more going on a local basis as well.
Well, I knew when I was rhyming things off, I knew I missed something. OHL playoffs. You got the Brantford Bulldogs coming back for their playoffs, first time in Brantford, so that's going to be starting. So and so much junior A hockey that's going on. So and you get notes. I get notes. Why aren't you talking about this? Why we can't talk about everything? If there's an intriguing story, women's hockey. There's so much talent. Like, oh goodness. Yeah, what's going on with that? And we have to get to that locally and also with the PWHL.
Just looking back at what you do on a morning basis, and I kind of look at your life, and I'm amazed at what you do on a daily basis. Because for people that don't know, you're married, you've been married for a long time, you've got 3 kids. How do you pull this off with 3 kids and a wife?
Yeah, I work it with my lovely wife Elizabeth. We're on opposite schedules. That's why we're probably still married. because she works at night a lot of the time, and then I work my silly hours during the day. So this is the time where the afternoon nap is key. Have to get that in before I go pick up the kids, and then I'll grab the kids, and then she has them during the day and getting them to school. I'll bring them back from school and get their homework done and stuff, and then get dinner, and then tonight there's a Leaf game. So the Leaf game will be on, and the kids are like, unfortunately, they're being combed into being Leaf fans. And then I'll have the game on in my room. I'll fall asleep to it. Mm-hmm. I won't be able to see the whole game. That's why I have to get up at the time that I get up to kind of see what I missed, to see what we were talking about on the show that morning.
Well, the Jays in 30 and Leafs in 30, like, is that not the greatest?
Yeah.
Ever?
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that really kind of educates you and helps you out in what you missed.
You know, and when I think about all that you do in terms of that time frame and getting ready and getting the highlights ready and getting the news ready, there's a little vacation as well too. And I understand you were in Tampa for a little action.
Yeah. So so I was in Tampa 2 weeks ago for a friend got married, high school friend that I've been friends with for over 30 years now. So it was a big contingent of all of our friends that came together. And then we got to go to George Steinbrenner Field because the Blue Jays were playing there. So that was cool. Even I hate the evil empire. I have a buddy who is a massive Yankees fan, so he was with us. So that was but I love baseball though too, and being able to see spring training, it's just got such a casual feel because the end result doesn't matter, but the anticipation of what's coming later this week is there. So it's it's pretty fun.
That's one of the fun things about you, Tim. That it's so different to me, and we both have this passion and love for sports. Mm-hmm. But I might be a little bit more analytical and you know, maybe why and the and the stats and whatever, but you have this hatred for teams.
Yeah,
like you can't stand the Senators. Like you let it know.
Well, the Senators too, because my in-laws are in Ottawa, so there's like a fierce rivalry with them, and it's tough though now because like we know so many people involved with the Senators.
That's right.
With Mr. Andlauer owning the team and Steve Staios, who's a great friend of the show because we've had him on so much with the Bulldogs. So that's why it's a little bit tougher. So I wouldn't say hate. Definitely hate the Yankees. Yeah. I wouldn't say hate the Senators. Just frown on them sometimes.
I think that's great. Well, we carry this sort of dislike or this kind of passion. Why don't we square it up?
Let's do it.
Let's do it, folks. I'll tell you, there's all kinds of things going on right now in the world of sports. And right now, when you take a look in a press conference, most recently, Dodgers superstar Shohei Ohtani spoke out for the very first time since his interpreter was accused of theft. Now, do you believe that Shohei Ohtani was telling the truth in this situation? And do you believe that, like, his habits, that Shohei did not know about what was going on here?
He did a 12-minute statement. They called it a press conference. That is not a press conference. That is a statement because there was press there, but they weren't allowed to contribute. He did bring forward a lot of information in that statement. There was two questions that were not answered. So this is your interpreter. This is your friend. How does this friend, for one, have access to your bank account? Two, how does this friend able to take away multiple transfers of $500,000 without you noticing? Those are the two factors that had me asking after the press or the conference or his statement yesterday. And until I hear those answers, I can't make a judgment on it.
Doesn't it? I don't know, not bother you or just make you a little suspicious? Like when people are taking out large sums of money, like generally banks let you know. Now, of course, we're not Shohei rich, but like if there's some type of unusual action, you generally find out, or someone contacts you, or you get an email, or generally a phone call. The banks don't mess around with that kind of stuff. Like, I just... Again, and the fact that he didn't answer any questions, and I understand that there is a language barrier.
Is he using that language barrier for his benefit? Much like, let's say, Vladdy Guerrero Jr. uses the language barrier for his benefit. When he doesn't want to address certain situations, he might use that as to his benefit.
And that's up for grabs,
Yeah.
right? Like, because this is a sensitive topic, obviously, sensitive towards him, especially coming off that 10-year, $700 million contract that he signs. And for all these years, like, this guy has not, his interpreter, his friend, it was more than just an interpreter. It was a good friend of his, right? And it doesn't stretch back just to the Dodgers, a short time here. This goes all the way back to his time since coming to America and being with the Angels. So to me, understand, I know sometimes we don't know what our friends are up to, but when it comes to this large sum of money, I just find it hard to believe that Shohei did not know or did not have a clue towards what was going on.
And who's this illegal bookmaker? You know what I mean? Like, his name is out there. This is how this all started. They're investigating this guy. So this guy is allowing the interpreter to get to $4.5 million in debt? You know what I mean? How do you like? Well, I don't know what an interpreter makes. I don't know what he would make a decent salary, not to the extent of Shohei Ohtani. So is the interpreter using Shohei Ohtani as leverage that he's good for it? Like, how does he not know anything in his statement, saying that the first time he heard was last Thursday after the game when Buddy was fired? And they're smiling in the dugout. That's the first time he knew anything about it. Yeah. And when ESPN, he got access to ESPN to sit down with an interview, saying that Shohei lent him the money.
He said that.
Now, Shohei never said that, but then they reverse course. Like, I think there is a cover up here. I don't know to the extent where we're going here because we don't know all the information.
No.
Now, there is worse things. You know what I mean?
I hear you, but you're talking about the reputation of a guy that's a worldwide star, one of the few worldwide stars that we have right now in sports.
What does Rob Manfred think right now?
Oh, my goodness. Why, Shohei? Why?
Well, like, you're leading into opening day. I know their opening day was last week. The real opening day is on Thursday. And this is what everybody's talking about when it comes to baseball. Your star possibly was betting on sports. Now, again, they keep saying the first thing they're saying, we're not betting on baseball. And then Pete Rose is out there too. I don't know if you saw that little clip saying, why didn't he have an interpreter back in the day? You know what I mean? He's having a little fun with that too.
He should be in the Hall of Fame, but I won't go there. That's another discussion. But I mean, last thing on this, I mean, $4.5 million. $4.5 million. And I know, again, I revert back to the fact that we are common people compared to what a guy like Shohei Ohtani represents financially. And I know we have heard in the past guys like Michael Jordan and Charles Barkley, they're doing $25,000 a hole. Phil Mickelson and his issues. But Phil was about $2 million. This is $4.5 million. Yeah. What kind of bets are getting laid down, Tim?
He's an awful bettor. Goodness.
He's horrible.
Probably some more than some little prop bets, maybe in the NBA.
Well, yeah, leading right to that. I mean, and this sadly is sort of what we're leading off here. Raptors forward Jontay Porter under investigation by the NBA following multiple instances of betting irregularities over the past several months. I mean, is public trust being compromised in the NBA?
Well, the thing is, like, the sports league have to look in the mirror here, right? They're the ones that have gotten to bed with betting. This is they're advertising everywhere. Betting is the new world. As somebody that has been in sports for many, many years, Bubs, like, you know, betting was always there. Yes. Listen, going back to Pete Rose, the betting has always been there. Illegal sports betting. But when it comes to legal sports betting, because they're these leagues, these teams, they see the moolah, they see the money, they have gotten involved in it. But the thing about legal sports betting and the situation with Porter with the Raptors is when it comes to legal sports betting, you can track things a whole lot better, and that's what we're seeing.
And well, remember the Ottawa Senators player that got suspended for 40 games for doing such a thing. And it is, you're right, because these computers are tracking exactly what every person is doing, who's winning, who's losing. Yeah. And I think you got to be pretty... pretty, I don't want to say dumb, but
Yeah.
you got to be pretty naive not to know that, especially if you're a star, that your accounts are being watched, especially if you're going through a friend. These are all things that can be tracked.
Well, Jontay Porter for the Raptors. This is a bigger deal though, because he's in there's allegations that he was involved in these prop bets.
Right.
You know what I mean? Taking himself out of the game because there was two incidents. One for injury, one for illness, and then those prop bets did really, really well. You know what I mean? That comes down to the integrity of the game.
Right.
And we can go back to Tim Donahue way back in, when was that? That was like...
probably in the 90s.
No, I think it may have been in the 2000s,
Was
but
it
like,
2000?
but was NBA referee who was helping to fix games. You know what I mean? Back then for illegal bookmakers, and that put the NBA in a serious situation. And this is why This is a serious situation to know the details of what's going on here. What did the Raptors know? You know what I mean? Coach Starko was asked about it, and it was says he's the first to, he heard like everybody else did when it came out yesterday. But if Jontay is taking himself out of the game, I don't even know how that works with legal sports betting. If he's getting kickbacks in some way, because he's a fringe player. Let's be honest. He's got a 2-way contract. He's playing for the G League. He's playing for the Raptors. Not much of a role in the Raptors. So I don't know. It is a tricky one.
Well, you had a guy like Bickerstaff, the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, talking about getting calls in the middle of the night. We know where your kids are. Yeah. This is scary stuff, right? Like being yelled at on the sidelines while coaching games about substitutions because players are, maybe 5 points away, 2 points away, 3 rebounds away from a particular prop bet, and he's getting yelled at, and people are yelling obscenities, racial, it's wide open at what he's talking about. And he's saying that, we've opened Pandora's box with the fact that sports gambling now is available to anyone. And like you said, Tim, we have players, current players, post players, guys that are retired, Wayne Gretzky advertising these types of illegal, we'll say legal gambling on sports.
Yeah, but they're coming through and saying people can't do that anymore. These athletes can't be doing this anymore because of the situation where we're putting it's been the influx of gambling ads, and again, this is where I've never gambled. Like it's just
you and I are the same.
It's not a thing that I do. I have no interest in it whatsoever because it doesn't pertain to it does pertain to the end goal for some, I guess, but it doesn't pertain to the story that I'm interested in when it comes to wins and losses. But you have to think about the younger demographic. You know what I mean? They're seeing all these ads, and they are betting. For sure they are. Now, you have to be legal to be able to place a bet. I don't know how they're doing that. But it is on the league. It is on, when it comes to the NBA, it is on Adam Silver. It is on Gary Bettman. It is on these commissioners who are taking this money from all these gambling institutions and putting it in their pockets and putting it in the owners' pockets. So it does come down to, when you see a situation like Jontay Porter, this is a serious situation that they're going to want to get to the bottom of because of the integrity of the game.
They got to get real ahead of this. And you just brought up something there that really, I got to say this because I think this is a serious issue. And again, we are definitely in the minority of people that do not wager on sports. And the scary thing to me is, and I have someone special in my life that's a teacher that teaches high school students. And high school students are all over this right now.
Okay, so how are they betting?
I have no idea. Because, first of all, this is another argument. You're allowed to have a cell phone as a child in school now. Like, you can operate on your cell phone in the middle of class, which is amazing to me, but you can. And kids are they're wagering. Right? This is happening. So I don't know what. Hey, we can get around. I don't know about you, but I got into clubs when I was 17. Right?
Yeah, there's ways.
There's ways to get around stuff when I was 16 years old. Right? So I don't know how. We can't go back. You can't go back. This is out there. So, like you said, I think a lot of these teams and franchises and leagues got to get ahead of this situation. Mm-hmm. Let's move on. Hockey now. Maple Leafs. I'll tell you, from every person I talked to, and I knew a lot of people that were at Scotiabank Arena on Saturday night, and there was a buzz. There was an incredible atmosphere going on. A lot of Oilers fans, more Oilers fans than any other visiting team that a lot of my Leaf friends said they'd ever seen in Scotiabank Arena. So there was a real playoff, maybe even Stanley Cup buzz that the Maple Leafs and Oilers were going to produce. And the Maple Leafs put a beat down on the Oilers for the better part of 2 periods and won 6-3. Does this game mean anything to you as a Leaf fan?
It was great because I put big money on that game, so I won big time. Yes and no, I say there, Bubs, for that one, because yes, it is the biggest game of the year. Anytime you get the best player in the world and him being on a Canadian team on Hockey Night in Canada, you know what I mean, and that's why they did it. That's the biggest game of the year. So is it a big deal? It is a big deal because the spotlight was on them, and you didn't have Marner in the lineup. You did see some pushback, some physicality from Edmondson. You know, when a new guy, the new guy they picked up at the deadline, Edmondson. Yeah. What about Max Domi getting into a bit of a scrap? Did you see his dad was in the stands?
Yeah, he didn't look too happy.
Well, because you see the guy like poking him. I don't know if you. There's a guy. So he's in the stands watching his son scrap it out, and there's this guy who you don't really see is like poking Ty like 3 times. And Ty's like, don't do that. Ty, tell me. Anyways,
didn't we see what happened in Philadelphia?
Yeah, exactly. Watch the lawsuit, Ty. So is it a big deal? So yes, I when you go up 5-0 on a very talented team like the Edmonton Oilers, and then hold on for the win, I think it is a big deal. The no part of the big deal is they come back on Saturday and lose to Carolina. So listen, those are 2 very good teams. That is a tough weekend to go 1-1. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But going forward, if you want to be doing something this year, they were down 2-0 in that Carolina game. They did fight back. They got a great goaltending effort from Joseph Woll.
He was unbelievable.
You got to figure out how to win that game. Mm-hmm. You want to win that game. So you got to within 2-1, but you're not able to complete the goal. It might have been the one of the best efforts of the season on Saturday night. But then if you're coming back and not winning on Sunday. It's
can I say this though? I thought it was a setup loss, right? Like to me, I can't even blame the Leafs here. You're coming off this big emotional swing of playing a home game, then you got to travel. Like what time did they leave Toronto? What time did they get to Carolina? And you set it up, or at least the National Hockey League sets it up for a 6:00 face-off. I thought the Leafs really were doomed. They were actually real smart. And maybe this is why Joe Woll was so good. Joe Woll was so good was the fact that they used the 3 goaltenders, had Jones as the backup in Toronto, sent Woll to Carolina. He was there a day ahead of time. So to me, I thought the National Hockey League almost granted the Leafs with a loss on that. Real tough situation. And Fred Anderson was unbelievable. Playing against his old team for one of the few times, and he was spectacular. I was really impressed with the Leafs. In fact, I have gone out here on this show and it said that I think the Edmonton Oilers, and I'll stand by it, I think they're going to win the Stanley Cup this year. And I'm confused at what kind of start that was, full knowing exactly everything you said. The spotlight was huge. The amazing top line that they have. The fact that they had a guy like Hyman on 48 goals going into his old building, and no one showed up until about the 45-minute mark of the entire game. And then it really got interesting there, quite honestly.
So if you're talking schedule, you look at the Oilers schedule. They played Thursday night. Then they come to Toronto. So that's a 2-hour time difference. They come to Toronto. They play again. We're putting excuses out there, but they play on Saturday night, and then they come back on Sunday, and they have to play in Ottawa on Sunday. So and then they lose on Sunday too. So back-to-back efforts. I can see what you're saying there. As a hard done by Leaf fan, it's just hard to get too excited about a big win on Saturday. Now, listen, Edmonton, they did allow Edmonton to get back into the game. But in that situation, to finish off the effort on Sunday would have been great, too.
Following the reported suicide of former enforcer Chris Simon, NHL Commissioner Gary Bettman and Deputy Commissioner Bill Daly maintain that there is no link between hockey and CTE. We have seen this kind of issue being discussed in the National Hockey League. Do you still side with the likes of Bettman and Daly?
Okay, so do we want fighting in hockey? Where are you with fighting in hockey?
Yes, it's part of the sport.
It's part of the sport. So if it's going to be part of the sport, they can't side with CTE. That's my take on it. Because then that affects the outcome of the sport. Now, if you go back to, I actually wrote something down here because I did find something. There was a study done actually just last year. So if there was a hockey player that had 50 fights or 3 or more penalties, on average in a game, they died 10 years earlier than somebody else. Now, is that based on CTE? We do not know that. We don't even know with Chris Simon on the situation there because that hasn't been proven. And I think it's just difficult for Bill Daly or Gary Bettman to be commenting on something that they don't know. Now, they have come out and said they want further studies on CTE. CTE. There is definitely there is similarities when we know when it comes to the NFL. But
which is a different sport. I get it.
And you're not forcing somebody into doing something. Right. Like there is enforcers in hockey for a reason. They know their role, and I think like it's a fan-driven sport. And what do the fans want to see? They want to see a big fight. Look at that Max Domi fight on Saturday night. That building was going crazy when that happened.
And isn't that nuts? I mean, because you're right. There are several of us that would say, you know what, how could there not be? We've already seen what happens with boxers when you take one too many punches to the head, and that's with gloves, and they're using 10.
What about UFC?
I mean, and UFC, the same sort of thing. We go crazy. We love the knockouts, yet we do. It would be foolish to say that there is not some type of linkage between some type of mental health and, at the very least, your health on a general basis by taking blows to the head. Yet, we are barbaric in the sense when it comes to sports, because you're right. When that moment happens, you remember the Rangers rookie and Reeves, when the Rangers played the Leafs, the build up to that, and then when they actually did drop the gloves, like the thirst, we wanted more. We didn't want the refs to step in. We wanted them to keep swinging.
Well, even it looked like he was looking at the bench to get approval. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
To get approval that he was able to go out and fight Ryan Reeves. Mm-hmm. But when that did happen, did I like it? I did like it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because I'm entertained by it. And why do we like sports? We want to be entertained. We want that story. Why am I forgetting his name?
Ryan Rempe.
Right, yeah. Oh, the Empire State Building.
Yeah,
that's a great nickname.
That is a great nickname, you know. But
we haven't seen him. So I know he was suspended. He got suspended, but yeah. But so Ryan, Rempe is an example of a kid that he's a big kid,
6'7".
He knows what he's there for. Does he want to stay in the league or does he want to be in the minor leagues? He knows what if he wants to stay up. He's got to do that. Now, is that right or wrong? That's up to him if he wants to be in that situation.
Well, I will say there's been some transformation in the National Hockey League that these players, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, you and I come from a time where we watch hockey where some of these enforcers, they had no skill. Like very little offensive, defensive skills. I find that a lot of these guys, I mean, Ryan, Reeves, we'll go Reeves for the Leafs at least, a big guy, veteran guy. He's scored some goals this year. He's assisted. He can play and contribute on a fourth line. So these guys are much better hockey players than what we saw back in the 70s and the 80s. But I think I'm with you. A guy that's watched football his entire life. Guys, we know what... You drive an F1 car, or if you're a NASCAR, you know what may happen.
Yeah.
Right?
You're not being forced into it.
You're not being forced into it, and there's a possibility that anything can happen.
These are the repercussions.
Blue Jays gonna have their season start on Thursday. Tim's going crazy, salivating at this. And I'll tell you, over this long 162, we're gonna ride the roller coaster with these Blue Jays. I can't wait to watch you on a 4-game losing streak when I turn on the TV in the morning.
I'm just
see how you react.
I'm just excited we don't have to talk about the Raptors. You know what I mean? Get the Blue Jays started so we don't have to talk about the Raptors.
The Raptors actually don't exist right now.
Oh my goodness, right? Like bring that on. Okay, so what do we think?
Okay, here's the thing. Right? Do they have to make the playoffs? And if they don't make the playoffs, do you got to just blow the whole thing up, Tim?
Yeah. So because you have to get something for Bo Bichette. Okay. Does Bo Bichette want to sign a long-term deal here? I don't think he does.
Oh.
I don't think he does. That's why he went for the 3-year deal. And after next year, he's a free agent. If they do not have a big season this year, you have to trade Bo Bichette. You need to get something for Bo Bichette because he's not going to stick around. So that's why this year is so important. Am I disappointed at the front office when it comes to their offseason moves? Yes and no. Did I want to spend $200 million on Cody Bellinger? Not really. No, because we don't know what Cody Bellinger is going to bring. He could be great. He could be crap. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But then that just locks up. It's not my money. Why do I care about money? But it does come down to the bottom line where they're making decisions on what they're doing with the team when it comes to money. Would I like to see somebody else at third base? Yes, for sure. IKF, I don't know if he's going to be able to do the job. I think what they want to do is they want to see how the offense rebounds from last year. Mm-hmm. How Kirk rebounds behind the plate, how Vladdy does at first. To see these kind of results, I think Bo had a decent season last year. You know what I mean? Like, how can you complain about
started slow, he got hot though.
Yeah, as he kind of generally does. What about Dalton Varsho? You know what I mean? Varsho's coming off a great spring.
He's got to be better.
He's got to be better. We got to see more offense from them. And then based on the pitching, you know what I mean? There's no way that they're going to be as good as last year. There's no way. Now, there is more pitching depth coming down. Who knows
but they're all injured. The depth is injured.
No,
the guy they got from Cuba, where is Manoah?
Yeah. Well, Manoah's he did throw some heat when he actually did that bullpen session on Friday. He was in the upper
side session.
Yeah, he's in the upper 90s. Whatever that means. But Kevin Gausman will be there. Okay, so that's important. Jordan Romano he's probably going to start the year on the DL. Eric Swanson's going to start the year on the DL. So that.
So who's going to close games?
Yeah. So who do you have? Nate Pearson? You know, so you know what I mean. So there is some question marks. That always happens, but that's what baseball's. There's 162 games. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? It is a long season. They started out really well last year and then kind of fizzled. I remember they played the St. Louis Cardinals last year in the first game of the season, and that offense was a banging. Remember Matt Chapman in the first month of the season? He was amazing, and then he hit the skids. So there needs to be some consistency on offense, and if they're are they going to make the playoffs? Oh man, goodness. You just look at you're worried about the Baltimore Orioles because they're
good.
Well, they got all these young kids that all look the same and can just rake.
But they grew that though.
Yeah, but I know, but it takes a lot of time of not being good.
Yes.
And is Rogers willing to do that? I don't think so. They got renovations to pay for.
Yep.
I am looking forward to seeing those actually. Too.
It's about time.
But here's the thing. So. I don't know if you've been looking at some of the prices. Like, ticket prices have gone up. You know what I mean? And so fans will be interested to see the new renovations and to see the baseball team to get in there. But if they start to stink, that's going to start to affect what happens at the gates.
Two things here, right? I mean, the offense, I think, is going to be in question. But to me, the key word is runs in scoring position, right? Like, this team is, over the last 2 seasons, been one of the worst clutch hitting teams that we have seen. Like, any time they seem to get guys on base. They work pitchers. I just don't know why that when a guy gets on second base, they seem to struggle. And I'm talking about some of their best guys to drive home runs. It just doesn't seem to work. And I'll tell you another thing, just kind of on a personal basis, just watching the games, especially if the team isn't very good. And you said it. Rogers has got seats to sell, right? This has been a 2-year project, and it's going to be a 3-year project where they totally convert the stadium into more of a baseball friendly.
$300 million.
Right? It's a lot of bread.
$300 million.
But you know what, though? I don't need to hear the sell. I love our broadcast crew, right? Like, our broadcast crew on television is amongst the best in Major League Baseball. I guess they get paid a good amount of money. So with that good pay means a lot of how do you do this? Self-invented commercials that they get to read to us all the time about how great the changes are in the stadium, right? And I'm like, oh, can you imagine having to read this to fans and it's 14-1? The Jays are losing 14-1. Like, I just feel like it's getting forced on us. But I guess that is.
But as fans, we can make the final decision if we want to pay that money and go to the ball game.
Right.
By the way, my schedule this year, I don't know if any Blue Jays fans out there that are listening, they're having something called Work from the Ballpark on Wednesdays. Have you seen the schedule?
No.
There are so many Wednesday afternoon games. First pitch just after 3 o'clock. They're calling it Work from the Ballpark. So they're encouraging a lot of people to go to the ballpark on a Wednesday afternoon, which is perfect for somebody like me.
Yes. Will you forego your nap?
Yeah. Oh, no. I'll squeeze in a nap. Maybe I just have an appointment to get out of work. Maybe possibly a little bit early. And then take the kids to the ballpark. Perhaps.
Good idea.
So.
You know, fun time of the year right now, basketball and at least the college level. We just finished the U Sports level of what we would call March Madness. Women and men's tournament going on right now. Do you have any interest level?
Interest level is minimal, specifically for the men. What I like in March Madness is two things. I like drama, and I like star players. Okay, so for the first set of games, there wasn't all that much drama. There was a little bit. There was a couple good games that I was able to catch. Like coming down to the wire, and they're so because they're college players, right? So they're so inconsistent when it comes to things and turnovers and the opportunity for that. But you don't really have star players. You know what I mean? Even though the Raptors hopefully are getting a high draft pick, we'll see. You don't really know any of the star players. But then you turn to the women's side. Has there ever been a time where the women's March Madness tournament has become more must-see TV than the men?
No, it's getting like it's been growing, and I totally agree with you. I have so much more interest in the women's tournament than the men's tournament. And you had a Shaquille O'Neal. Go find it on Twitter. He says the men's tournament right now. I mean, he's sitting in doing commentary for the men's tournament, and he says it's basically crap right now, and that the women's players are better. They're better prepared for the moment, and that they're playing more exciting basketball. And I have to agree with Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, we had a Kia Nurse here playing for University of Connecticut, which was the dominant program for such a long time. But right now, it's wide open. And the competitiveness of the closeness, like the competitiveness of from 1 to 16 in the seedings is so much closer than the men's that I find myself, because you said the word drama. We want drama. Maybe I've watched a couple of these teams play once or twice all season long. So at the end of the day, I want some excitement. Yeah. So I find I'm flipping over to the women's tournaments, and what I like even more, and maybe this is just me being a guy, is the fact that these women like to trash talk each other. Yeah. It's fun. It's fun.
Does even go like to work in the PWHL, like the grittiness that they're giving it to each other?
Yes.
Like it's something to see. But again, also the star power. Look at what Caitlin Clark has done for women's basketball this year for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Like that's the hardest ticket to get to going to Iowa, and she had her last home game last night. Her team scored 64 points. She scored 32 of them. She scored half of her team's points. You know what I mean? She's going to be the first overall pick in the WNBA draft. Gino Auriemma thinks his player, Paige Buchers, she's the best player in the country. So hopefully at some point they meet up when you get those two star players coming against each other. So the interest level is definitely there.
Here's the thing, and exactly think about the names you just Paige Buchers.
Paige Buchers. Yeah.
These players have been with the program for 2, 3, 4 years. The men's tournament, we don't know the players. because the best players are gone after 1 year, Tim.
Yeah.
We don't get that relationship like we used to. I think about a going way back to the mid '80s, and you had like a guy like a Patrick Ewing. You had Allen Iverson. These guys played for their programs for multiple years. What was the great thing about the Fab Four with Michigan? We got to see them year after year, and we grew with them. But these guys are one and done. And that's why a team like Kentucky gets knocked out in the first round, because these guys aren't tournament tested.
Yeah, and you got two guys on there that are on the draft list that I've never even heard of before, but now they're sitting at home because they're not that good. Well, not that they're not that good. They don't know how to play together.
No.
That's it. You know what I mean?
They just haven't gotten used to each other, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
The World Women's Curling Championship successfully concluded over the weekend. Canada winning in Nova Scotia. Now the men's World starts Saturday in Switzerland. Will you be watching?
Will I be watching? Am I an avid curling fan? No, I am not. But I do, going back to our March Madness talk, I do appreciate greatness, and I do love that story. And when you have somebody like Rachel Hallman, who came into the Worlds that's in her home country, was in Sydney, Nova Scotia, who hadn't lost a game, she went right through the Scotty Tournament in Hearts. Beating everybody, and then went right through the round robin, only losing once, and I think the second last game to Korea, and then dethroning Switzerland and taking her second ever world title. I definitely had some interest. And I also, going back to what we do on the show, that led my sports yesterday, because I think that's important to lead sports, because that's a great story to tell. You know what I mean? Yeah, the Leafs played on Sunday too, but no, that's a bigger story to tell when it comes to sports. The women winning gold at the World Curling Championships.
I will not take anything away from Rachel Holman. I will not take anything away from the importance of the Worlds, but I'm finding that sport not in tune or in touch with the rest of the country.
The younger demographic?
Maybe even the rest of the world. I understand that and if you watch enough of it, there are young curlers coming through the system. And when you watch the Scotties or you watch the Brier, you're starting to see some younger curlers. But when I scan that crowd, I see a lot of gray hair. And I see a lot of white people, okay? Just to be not dishonest.
Yeah.
I have not... Help me. I think there is someone on Team USA and their national team. I have not seen anyone of color in that sport. And I think the diversity is important. And I realize that a lot of these rinks are from Northern Ontario, where there's just not a lot of black people, plain and simple.
Yeah, and the prairies, too.
Right?
The prairies,
and the prairies as well, too. But there is out east. There's a big community of blacks out east in Halifax, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm wondering if the sport is suffering because of its lack of diversity. And I know it's a world sport. I mean, you talked about South Korea and Japan and United States. There are many countries that are in Europe that are curling, and it's becoming bigger and bigger. But the lack of diversity in the sport, to me, is a very interesting problem that I find that sport, very much like hockey, is getting into the inner cities and introducing hockey to a lot of people. Curling needs to follow.
It's it's so competitive. There's so many sports out there. You know what I mean? Like how are you able to choose? I have young kids there. I'm not putting them in curling. You know what I mean? Like when it comes to that, I don't know the background of a grassroots curling program, like that type of thing. I know there's some great curling rinks around here, and a lot of people are passionate about it. But it's a lot of, I don't know, white guys and white women that are doing it.
Max Verstappen's 9-race win streak ended after just 5 laps at the Australian Grand Prix last weekend due to engine problems. The crowd went wild when the puff of smoke started coming out of his car. Did you?
I did not watch it because, well, 2 reasons. I didn't watch it because, what time was it on at?
Oh, it was like 1 o'clock in the morning.
Okay, so that's one of the reasons, and we've had these conversations off your podcast here too, because I'm not going to get up at silly o'clock to watch a race. I don't care that much. Specifically, if you know who's going to win the race. I think that's the issue when it comes to F1. Like last season, was there any excitement whatsoever when it was a foregone conclusion who was going to win the race? Not really. It's going to be Max Verstappen. But when he gets knocked out and somebody else wins, okay, so that piques my interest a little bit as a sports fan. But I think there's always been struggles with F1 when it comes down to that, when it comes to Michael Schumacher, and when it comes to Max Verstappen, when it comes to Lewis Hamilton, like you can't forget about him. Like he had that pure domination for many, many years. So that's where I think they struggle, and that's why Drive to Survive has been so successful, because it's telling other stories besides just who's always winning, and you get more of that casual fan into the situation. I'll use my nephews as an example. We're never F1 fans, but now they're F1 fans, and they are getting up with you in the wee hours of the morning to watch those races.
And that's a question that I'll ask you, because I know you're interested in the Drive to Survive series, which is, I guess, in its 4th season now. Do you not believe that it would translate into more viewers of the sport, watching the races, watching qualifying?
I think it definitely does. Yeah, I'm just not one of them.
Right.
Because like at a certain point, I can only watch so many things. You know what I mean? Like you can't, like some of my friends just make fun of me all the time about how many sports I do like. My wife always says, because she's not a sports fan, she doesn't care. She doesn't know what sport's coming or going. But there's always a TV on in the house, sometimes on 3 different floors with different sports on each one of them. So, like, there's only so many things that I can watch and take in, and F1 does take a bit of a backseat when it comes to things.
And that's fair, and because it is. I would say, I don't want to say a growing sport in North America, because it's always existed. Going back to even before Gilles Villeneuve, before Jacques Villeneuve, Gilles Villeneuve is someone that became so popular in this country and really carried the torch for Grand Prix racing in this country. And then, of course, his son would go on to win a world championship, which, that argument will forever go on in 1994 about who won the then Lou Marsh Trophy, if it was going to be Larry Walker or if it was going to be Jacques Villeneuve. And of course that opened up a whole can of worms between a lot of people in terms of baseball and race fans. You can go on and on and on. But yeah, I'm interested to see the growth of this sport, because Formula One will always be this way, right? The dynasties, and we talk about this in sports right now, there are no longer the Montreal Canadiens. There are no longer the New York Islanders. Even the Edmonton Oilers, they 3 in a row, but they never put 4 in a row together. When were the last time the Yankees won back-to-back World Series? I think because of...
That's a beautiful thing, though.
I'm 2010. For sure it is. I mean, other than the New England Patriots, which won, I don't think more than 2 in a row at one time, dynasties are gone in sports.
Well, look at the Chiefs, what they're doing, and then it does become boring, because you don't want the Chiefs winning again. You know what I mean? Let's get somebody else in there to I don't know, to mix it up a bit, because I think as sports fans we've changed a little bit, where we don't want to see those dynasties as much. That's my personal take.
Well, it's certainly, when the dynasties do come up, I think you have to pull some respect and say, wow, that's incredible, because it is so hard to do in sports nowadays. Tim, this is always a pleasure.
Yeah, buddy.
Great to chat some sports with you and
anytime, pal.
And debate I'm feeling. You know what? For some reason this season, I said this to another Leaf fan of mine, and even a couple of Leaf fans that we have out in the newsroom. I don't know if I'm pulling for you, but I want to see some success. I want to see you win more than one round.
Yeah, but we're just like, I just don't think it's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Isn't that brutal as a fan of the team?
You're not even think about that. You're not optimistic about winning one round.
No.
That's incrediable to me.
No, definitely not. Because like you get your hopes up, and then it just ends in disappointment. So I'm there for them. I'll be there for them. But I don't know. By the way, look at that, eh? Number 39, Sportsliners.
I know.
Yeah.
How many goals you scored in that?
Yeah, right. Yeah. What's that smell like? Anyways. Yeah. Thanks for having me, pal. There's always there's always stuff. There's always stuff to talk about, right? So that's why it's great, and that's why there's always great stories about sport.
Look forward to the next.
Keep up the good stuff, dude.
All right, my man. Hey, before we put today's podcast to bed, if you do have a local athlete, team, or sports event to promote, Sportsline is here for you. Contact us on one of CHH's many social media platforms, and we'll certainly set something up. Please hit that thumbs up, share, and subscribe button so you never miss any of the outstanding podcasts that we offer, like Morning Live, trending now, and newsmakers. For the brilliant minds and hands that put this podcast together, thank you so much, and we'll chat tomorrow.